Hey, and welcome back to the Megan Waldrop podcast. I'm Megan. If you're new here, welcome. Pull up a seat. This is the podcast where we BYOB, we bring our own beliefs. And it's all about just, self-improvement, these thoughts that we have during the day, like these deeper thoughts about life and how we can get, I don't know if it's like get the most out of life, but how do we show up in a way that is going to bring us more joy in our life, in our work, in our relationships, and most importantly, the relationship with ourselves. And so this one is an interesting episode. So the last episode, I had mentioned that I was going on a trip to Augusta, Georgia to go see some old friends from high school. So a little backstory. We have about, I don't know, there's like 12 of us, mostly guys and a few girls. And we were super close in high school, throughout college. And then, as I believe Mel Robbins, she mentions it as the great scatter. I think that's what she says. Afterwards, life happened and we all kind of went in different directions and lost touch. I mean, maybe a couple of us stayed close, but there was never a time that we really hung out again. And then, unfortunately, one of our dearest friends passed away in the group, which was completely life shattering as it is. If anybody's ever lost a friend, it's just it's really hard to describe because you're friends with somebody, you're supposed to live forever with them, right? Like this is we're going to go through life together. Like there's nothing's going to change there. And it just seems so surreal. And this was probably, I don't even know when this was. This was 2019. And so we probably hadn't seen each other in 15 years altogether. So in 2019, we all go to the memorial and we see each other at her wake. And it was this bittersweet moment where we were mourning the loss of our friend and then completely so grateful that we were reunited again, that we were all together. And so that night we were like, okay, well, let's go grab a bite to eat at a restaurant. So we went, it was like our group and then a larger group of friends that were into different schools, whatever, they were at the restaurant too. And then afterwards I was like, no, let's go hang out just us. So we went to one of our friends' houses like back in high school. I mean, it was just like back in high school and we all just hung out till the wee hours and it was just so refreshing and it was a godsend and it felt like our friend Lauren Gardner, who will always be with us, was giving us this gift of being together again. Like out of this sorrow, we could find each other again. These are our family. Like this feels the closest to family I've ever had are these group of friends. And so since then, since 2019, we've met every year. I think 2020 we didn't for obvious reasons. But the years after we've met up every single year and every year in the past like 3, 4 years, we've rented a house. And so now we have our own house that we stay in together for a long weekend. So it'll be, or for Friday night, Saturday night. And it's interesting because a lot of the guys are dads, which is ironic. I love that all of them have daughters. So I feel like that's a beautiful karma in the best way. And they're married and, they're settled down. We're all in our 40s, we're all 44, 45. And it's so funny the first time that we all got together, we were up all night, which I'll talk about in a different episode too, but we were all up all night. And the next morning I wake up and the house looks great. Like there's no beer bottles everywhere, or trash or like smashed items like there were, in college. It was like, oh, people are married and have been trained well how to live with other people. And the house looks great. So it was really fun to be with them and just we look forward to it every year. So this year I go and I love to stop in Charleston where I am now and then take the back roads to Augusta, Georgia, because to me there's nothing more beautiful than taking the back roads from South Carolina into Georgia. It's just listening to good music and you don't really have cell phone signal and all there is are small towns and peanut farms and just beautiful greenery and great time to just really reflect on life. going there and coming back. So it's about a 3 hour drive. But it was so interesting because as soon as I entered the city limits of Augusta, my body, like I immediately felt sad. Like I was sad as soon as I entered the city limits. And I just didn't understand because before I would get really excited. And, this year was a little different for me in the sense that, well, every reunion that we've had, I'd never drank, but this year I wasn't smoking weed or partaking in any hallucinogenics. Like I was just sober girly going to Augusta. And I was trying to figure out like, why did I feel so sad? And I've done some research on this because it isn't unusual that people have, reunions with friends or family. And then not only are you sad when it's over, it's more of like you just kind of feel out of sorts. And honestly, it took me about a good 48 hours for me to kind of regulate myself after this trip. And it wasn't like anything crazy happened, but it was as soon as I entered the town that I thought, what is going on? So I did some research and it said that it's when our nervous system recognizes something long before our conscious minds can put words to it. So, places are really powerful, as we know. They hold memories, and it's not only just like a mystical sense, but it's also neurological. Like we associate these certain environments with certain versions of ourselves, which makes total sense. For me, I wasn't driving, just driving into Augusta. I was driving back towards the teenage version of myself, the version of myself that had moved there from Heidelberg, Germany, this army kid, moved there when I was a sophomore, felt completely out of place, ended up meeting great friends, falling in love for the first time, learning to drive. I mean, all these core memories, meeting these incredible people that are my chosen family. And even going back in my 20s and going to hang out with friends and partying and just like raging, when I was back in the 20s, when I was raging, my roaring 20s. And, there's also family dynamics, and there's the big one is the old beliefs about myself or old beliefs about yourself that these places can hold, and who you thought or who I thought I had to be to belong. There was all this different types of ways that you were trying to just, learn about being alive and then being a teenager, being in your 20s, 30s, whatever that is. So I was reading that it's kind of like, your current self is walking into this environment that once shaped you, and your nervous system remembers that. And the sadness might not even be a part of your life today, but it's just like old emotional residue. And it became accessible again because you had all of these different sights and sounds and parts of you that you felt like were scattered all over the city. And I had a visualization that I read about that I thought was really helpful. And it's like, when you go to visit these old places, or maybe it's an old home, or maybe it's like an old family home or anywhere, you walk, it's like you're walking through an old house that you used to live in, and all the furniture is gone, but the indentations are in the carpet where the couch used to be. And just because you can see the indentations doesn't mean that the couch is still there. It's a little bit like these towns are emotional indentations that are still there, even though you aren't the same person who created them. Simply going back reveals where they used to be. So I'm just going to marinate on that for a second. It's like, it gets really deep though. I mean, it's really interesting how your body instantly reacts before your mind can even go. Even if your mind's thinking, oh, I'm going to have a great time with my friends, I'm going to do this, we're going to make breakfast or whatever plans you got going on. And then you're like, why do I feel so like almost depressed? Like I really did feel like I was super down. It was really weird. And then talking about family dynamics, but it also kind of, once you're around your friends, if you ever notice, what role do you kind of step back into? Maybe certain people in the group are the encourager, the listener, everybody's joking around like always. There's the helper, and then there's the one that's emotionally available and the one that's feeding everyone. And it's not any of those roles aren't bad, but it's like, what, who do I become when I'm with my friends? Like, it's often more revealing of you kind of step into this thing. Like, I'm kind of always I feel like the nurturer in a sense, and I love it because I love them and that's part of my love language. But it's like, to the point where I was almost getting tired because I'm like, okay, is everybody okay? Like, let me make sure we have snacks, like everything's laid out. And it's like, Megan, nobody seriously is their life is not going to be deeply affected if I don't light this candle over here or I don't move this lamp over here. I'm literally taking lamps from different parts of the house to set up mood lighting because it is important if there's just LED hospital lights. No, 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 we're not doing that. But it's funny just to see like how we step into these roles that we used to play. And then, so I was looking more into, why do I feel depressed? Like it literally took me 48 hours to readjust. And I'm sharing all of this in case this is ever helpful for you if you're traveling or you're going to see people or family. This is all norm that I've noticed this is the norm sometimes for people is like, if you come home depressed, it doesn't necessarily mean that something went wrong. It's more of this decompression. You had emotional adrenaline going on, and weekends with old friends are really stimulating. You're talking and you're remembering and you're laughing and you're being on, and then you return home and it's completely silence. And so it's like your body and your nervous system finally have a place to process all that. And it's also interesting because seeing old friends reminds us that life keeps moving. And that can create sadness within itself. For us, it feels there's that bittersweet because we always go to visit our friends' gravesite and pay our respects and love. And we go together to do that at one point during the weekend. And just to see friends and in my eyes, I'm going to see them as 16-year-olds or 17-year-olds. Like that's always who we are. But then I take a step back. I'm like, oh, wow, we are aging. Like, look at their gray hair. Look at my gray hair. Look at this. Look, they have 9-year-old children. Some of them have teenage children, and it's like mind blowing. And then it's so interesting to visually see this age that comes around us and then to feel grateful to still be alive and yet also to feel like no time has passed and the jokes are still funny. You're still making the same, still the same sayings that you used to say back in the day. And there's that comfort in a way, because even though life has changed so much, when we're together, just being around each other feels like, oh, okay, I can breathe and I'm back to my former youthful self that didn't have all these worries or responsibilities, and it's just us being together. And even just having conversations, it's so interesting to see how many of us have different, I guess, different values and different perspectives on life. We don't really talk about politics because we don't care that much, which I love. Back in the day, we used to care a lot. And so we would get into all kinds of heated discussions, but now we're all like, who cares? Like we have all had our different experiences around, living these full humans that had all these very strong points of view. And then over the years, we've had experiences where we felt like, oh, well, maybe this doesn't work for me anymore. Or we're seeing things that feel hypocritical. And we're like, I don't want to sign up for that anymore. And it's been really interesting to see how we come back together. And it's actually, where there was such a big divide there. Now it's just like, people were just too tired. Like it's too hot in Augusta to have these arguments. But it's just like what really matters here is the friendships and the love. And so yes, that depression isn't actually, sadness depression. It's really a decompression is kind of how you can see it. Because I mean, how many weekends have you had where you almost get sad for them to end and they haven't even begun yet? You know what I mean? Where we're like gripping on so tightly. We're like, oh, I don't want this to end. And you're constantly not wanting it to end where you kind of aren't even really in it. It's so funny how that works. But to be able to know that it's going to be okay, we're going to recover from that. Everything's going to be fine. And how I recovered, actually, I came back to Charleston. It's like a little midway stopping point for me from our home in Wilmington, North Carolina. And I ate good food, healthy food, because, when you're traveling, food is kind of all over the place, especially whenever you're eating with a group of people. They might not be on the same wavelength of what you're used to. And so I had a good dinner. I went on a walk. The next day I worked out, I meditated, I journaled, I was doing all the things to get back on my schedule. And it finally felt like, okay, I'm back to this Megan that feels like the version of myself that I'm working towards every day. And so I wanted to share some journal prompts too, if this might be helpful, or maybe it's just something that you think about if you're driving or you're doing errands or whatever that is. And maybe you're confronted with these feelings when you are in a reunion or about to go to a reunion, or you've just come back from one. You can ask yourself, without trying to answer them perfectly, but just, what version of myself shows up when I go back to these places? Is it feeling inadequate? Is it trying to prove myself? Is it feeling of lost, or is that feeling of freedom, or is it that feeling of eternity? We're never going to die. And I joke with my friends because there was a movie, or it was a TV show. Anyway, there's a movie or a TV show I saw recently where this guy was at a keg party. It was a fraternity party, and he had chugged a beer and he looked around at everybody and he said, "We're never gonna die." And everybody starts cheering. And I mean, that's exactly how it felt when I was with these people when we were growing up. And now it's like, oh, not only do I feel more like the mortality of life, one of our dear friends, actually, two of our dear friends have passed away. And now, as we were finishing up, it was our last day, our last breakfast before we were all going to drive out. I said, not to be morbid or anything, but can we just have a certain point of contact that if something ever happens to any one of us, that somebody in our family or friend or something will notify the others, because I want to be there for y'all and I want you to be there for me, and it got really deep. I was like, I mean, these are the conversations you have at midlife. Like, I want to make sure that I am there to support you, your family, but also each other whenever we are all here together. And I want y'all to be there for me when I pass away. I want y'all to be there for each other and also to celebrate together, because that's what this is all about. And so, yeah, it goes from we're never going to die to can y'all make sure to contact me, or I will have my sister contact you if anything happens to me. So it's just funny how these things evolve. But friends, right? So here's some more prompts. What version of myself shows up when I go back to these places, or I'm around these people? Another one is, what role do I automatically play with a particular friend or family member? And then this one is pretty interesting too, is what am I still hoping other people will confirm about me? That one's kind of deep. I feel like I'm working on that too, is just this trying not to feel like I need to prove anything to anyone, or even myself. Like, what am I trying to prove here? What is it about my life that I feel isn't adequate enough to stand in a room with other people who, are very high achievers or not, and then be completely at peace with everything? Like, why does that feel so challenging for me sometimes? These are things I'm asking myself. I'd love to know if you ask yourself these things too. But it's just, we in America, especially, we are huge drivers. We're huge. We have the freedom to do what we want, to start any business we want, to fail, to get back up again. And then we have social media showing us all kinds of different versions of people that are out there. And it's, of course, the highlight reels. So we compare our low points to their high points, and we don't know what the hell's going on with anybody's life. But our brains compare all the time. Maybe we're comparing ourselves to our siblings or other people in our family or even our parents. It's like, what's so tiring? Like, how do we not do that? And yeah, so I'm going to leave it there. I'm going to do another episode about what it's like to be around other people when you're the sober girl. And it's pretty interesting, just the revelations to witness everyone and to also kind of witness where you are in yourself. And that'll be the next episode. But until then, I hope this has helped some way of kind of shedding some light of why we might feel sadness or depression-esque vibes after we've been with people or even enter a space that we used to go to and feel so comfortable all the time and couldn't wait to get there. And all of a sudden it kind of feels like, ugh, I don't know who I am here. Because honestly, you're not the same person that you were when you first arrived there or when you last left there. So here's to our self growth. Here's to continuing these deeper conversations because how cool and how curious it is to be alive and to have these questions like what can we do every day that's going to bring us joy, but also to question of why we might have kind of negative feelings towards things. It doesn't define us. It's just something in our body that's telling us something. What do we do to kind of dig a little deeper to become more of a witness to that and then let that go? As always, BYOB, bring your own beliefs. I'd love it if you have any questions or if you wanted to reach out, I'd love to connect with you. You can reach out to me at support@meganwaldrop.com or you can DM me on Instagram at megan.waldrop. Thank you so much for being here, and I'll see you on the next episode.